My voice is really raspy tonight. So what are the questions you want to ask?
Well, I just wanted you to kind of just share, just family history and stuff, and just about you mostly. Kind of like I kind of want to know like where you were born and what it was like growing up.
I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and my mother, get this, my mother was born in 1896. I mean, does that sound incredible? Oh my gosh. Oh.
That's what our kids are going to say about
But,
yeah, well, that's what our great grandkids will say about us.
My great grandchild will be like, "You were born in 1991?"
1930. That's like, you know, I lived through a depression, World War II, and all this other stuff that's happened in between.
Right.
I mean, when you live to be almost 90, you have lived history. And
oh yeah.
when my sisters were 12 and 13 years older than I am, and so when they brought me home, my mother was sick, and I was 1 month premature. And my daughter thinks that's, I don't know, they didn't put anybody in incubators in those days, I don't think. But anyway, and my oldest sister, Dorothy, who was the caregiver sister, she said, "Oh, you were like the little doll. She made me clothes, but my sisters didn't have a chance to have the education because they were born in they were teenagers in the 30s, because they were 13, 14 years older than me. And so my one sister went to secretarial school, and my sister Dorothy worked as a people that made clothes, and you got paid by how many you made. Yeah. And we lived in St. Louis. I was born in St. Louis. We lived on Kitterly Avenue, and every night the tamale guy came by, and they would bring home buckets of beer. Okay. And I remember sipping the foam off the top of the beer. And in those days, people didn't keep dogs exactly like they do today, but I had this dog by the name of Rex. And he really was kind of our dog, but he was kind of the neighborhood dog. So he would come in the wintertime with his pals, because my mom would let him sleep in the basement in the wintertime. And he'd come to the back door and look at my mom with his pals. He'd have these other dogs. I want my mother to let all the dogs in. But the thing about Rex is I had a broken swing, and he wouldn't let me get in the swing. And we lived on kind of a busy street, and he would stand in front of me. He was a police dog, big police dog.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He wouldn't let me get in and go in the street. But, you know, I remember my first day of kindergarten. It was like, really? I already found a boyfriend that first day.
No trouble, huh?
So anyway, but we moved to Ferguson right after I started kindergarten. And I didn't go to kindergarten the rest of that year, but I started the first grade because in those days, they let you go to school in January, like you were half a semester.
Okay.
So when we moved to Ferguson, I started first grade, I think in January. Yeah, I know it was. And
what were your mom and dad doing that brought you to?
What?
What were your mom and dad doing that brought you guys to Ferguson?
Well, actually, my brother, St. Louis was getting to be, my brother was getting in trouble, I guess. I don't know any details about that. But Ferguson was like the outskirts. If you're out of Ferguson, you're in farm country. Mm-hmm. So when the school bus came in, the farm kids came in first. And then usually I walked to school because I couldn't stand the rickety bus. I would rather walk. But we used to take our ice skates to school, and there was a country club, Wabash Country Club. It was on the way to high school. It was this pond, this big, not real big lake, wasn't huge, but it would freeze over in the wintertime. We'd skate on that pond.
That's super fun.
And we had a clubhouse on the river. We called it a clubhouse. It was kind of a cabin, and my family bought it all together. Everybody was poor, but somehow they got this, maybe they bought it for the taxes on it or something, but it was just a house. It didn't have insulation. We had a pump to get the water, outhouse, a 3-hole outhouse, a little one and 2 big ones. Mm-hmm. And when my brother passed away, we had so much fun out there. We'd go out there in the spring, and the guys would go clean up the yard, and there was a big lot next door. We'd have a volleyball court. We had our own recreation center. We had badminton, volleyball, horseshoes, and around the outside of the house was a big screened-in porch with big long benches. We played cards,
That's
went
awesome.
swimming, fished. Oh my God, we had a.
Kind of
You did
wow.
outdoor stuff. You did fun
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
I mean, this is the 30s.
Yeah.
But you know what, my family, even though they're first generation from Europe, they were hardworking people.
Mhm.
And my dad was a master mechanic. He taught mechanics, he taught apprentices,
Really?
mechanics.
Like automobile.
Yeah, he actually got
Really?
invented something for an automobile, but I don't think he knew how to, because he wasn't educated. He didn't know how to,
Hey, how's it
Like
going?
that.
Good, how are you?
well, this
Good.
is
Hey, I'm
Lance.
Kevin.
He's,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about you.
Lauren.
Likewise.
Lauren.
Lauren.
Oh, that's easy.
Hey, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Cool.
Lance is kind of rebuilding his house. He gutted his house and.
I heard.
Yeah, saving the roof, that's about it.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
Go to the bathroom.
Sure.
So anyway, we'd go out there in the summertime, on the
Yeah.
weekends,
Oh, yes.
vacation time. And of course, the mosquitoes were really bad because we didn't have air conditioning. And I love the well water. Oh my God, we had this outside pump. The only water we had was well water. You wouldn't dare bathe in that stuff, you'd freeze. But I love the taste of that well water for some reason.
Really?
It was so good. But, I mean, it was fun. I mean, we were poor. We weren't rich people. But we lived like we were,
Yeah.
even though we weren't.
Did your mom just stay at home? Did she stay at
Oh.
home and raise you guys, or
Oh,
did
yeah.
she go to work, or?
Oh, she was a home mom.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, my mother wasn't really educated either.
Mhm.
The only job I ever know she had is when we moved up to California and we moved into Navy housing, she took a job cleaning apartments when people would move out. And, but my mother was very smart. So one thing she said to me, I remember, was so cute. She said, you know, women who drink too much have strange children. She was a really observant person. And my dad was just this kind of sweet, easygoing old guy, and oh, my mother had like 6 or 7 brothers. They tormented my poor dad. We'd be out at the clubhouse, and it was like a big community thing, and the women cooked, and we had sandwiches, and we could pick wild blackberries along the side of the river, and we used to get in the rowboat and go hiking across the river. It was the beginning of the Ozark Mountains, was right across the river from us. We were on the Merrimack River. And we used to go hiking up there, and we'd find Indian heads, and, I mean, I didn't even realize,
That's so
what I
cool.
was finding.
Yeah.
I would have saved some, but I didn't know. But the mosquitoes were really bad, but there were fireflies. It was beautiful. And there was a place called Times Beach, about a mile or so down the river where the rapids were. And there was like a little amusement type park.
Oh, yeah, sure, I'm sorry.
So at the 4th of July, they would shoot off fireworks. So we'd sit on our screened-in porch and watch the fireworks going off at Times Beach. But, and my uncles, we had big fish fries. My uncles would, they had a trout line. You know what a trout line is?
Yeah, run across the river and you just
Yeah.
just blind on.
So they had the trout line, and they'd go run the trout line, and we'd have these big fish fries. And
Oh, yeah.
my aunts and uncles would play this game called Hell. And I don't even know what it was, but I mean, it was kind of a wild game. It was a card game.
Card game? Okay.
And they'd play pinochle. And I learned how to play pinochle and all the card games because,
And Aunt Sis learned how to play all those.
oh,
too.
my sister was we went to the cabin one winter, Jan and I and Sis,
Mhm.
and we're up at the Big Bear, and we played pinochle the whole weekend. I didn't win one game.
She won.
It got to be a joke the whole way. And I'd pick up my hand and I'd have, I don't know if you know about pinochle, jacks and nines are the worst. I mean, the only ones that count are from like 10 jack, queen, king, ace. Those are the only cards that count. And my hands would be full of all the no count cards. And it went on the whole weekend.
That's fun.
But, my sister learned to play bridge when she was 90. I mean,
Wow.
she wasn't educated, but she was smart. And I mean, at 90, I couldn't believe it. And I went up to when she was in the place, we were playing pinochle. And I hadn't played for a while. And so we called her Aunt Sis. Her name was Evelyn Louise. We called her Evie Lou, Aunt Sis. And at one time, she was really thin. And my uncles, who always gave everybody nicknames, Skinny Dugan was another name.
Skinny Dugan?
Yeah. And in those days, people gave names, you know, they would give each other corny names like that. And of course, I was the babe because I was the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh my gosh, being the baby's good.
Yeah.
Except you somehow don't grow up as mature as the rest of them, because you don't have to go out in the world as soon.
I think you figured it out.
What?
I think you figured it out.
Yeah. So, oh, we had wonderful summers. And when my brother died, he
How
said,
old was he? How old was your brother when he died?
about 88, something,
Okay.
87.
Yeah.
He said he wanted his ashes spread on the Merrimack River because that was the place that he had the most fun in his whole life. And I kind of feel that way too. It's like I kind of tear up just talking about it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I didn't realize until later in my life, really how lucky I was
Yeah.
that in the height of the Depression, at least my dad had a job. I always felt like I was poor.
Yeah.
Because I was always comparing myself to people that had more.
Mhm.
And you kind of do that when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But my sister Dorothy, she used to sew my clothes, and I'd go clean her house. I loved to clean her house. Oh my God. Because she was messy. And I would go in the room and I would take everything apart. I'd take the curtains down. I'd move all the furniture. I'd clean the window. When I got done with that room, it was clean from head to toe. My mother was so clean that she'd say, oh, now you have to dust. It was my job to dust. Nothing looks any better, you know, when I get
Yeah.
I didn't see anything,
Uh-huh.
any improvement. But when I cleaned my sister's house, oh boy. I could go in there and be so proud of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got something done. These are a lot of my stories.
Yeah.
I love listening to this stuff.
How
But
long did you guys live in Ferguson?
we lived in Ferguson till I was 14. And my dad went to Pearl Harbor after it was bombed. And he worked in the shipyards.
Did you guys all go to Pearl Harbor?
No,
Okay.
no, just my dad. No, they didn't let civilians go over
Okay.
there. Because there were
Mm-hmm.
mines all over the ocean.
Oh, that's right.
And one of my cousins was a minesweeper. We were so
What?
grateful he got home alive.
Oh my gosh.
But, oh my gosh.
Wow.
So your dad was in the Navy then?
Did he join the Navy or did he work for the Navy as a civilian?
He was a civilian.
Okay.
He went there because he never had been in the service and he felt like he hadn't been doing his part. So when he had the opportunity to go to Pearl Harbor and help with the reclamation, that he kind of felt like he was doing his patriotic part.
Do you think a lot of people felt that way during that time? Like
They
people
did.
do that part?
People were very patriotic. They were very loyal. Oh, there were some people, well, everything was rationed. And shoes were rationed. You might be at 1 or 2 pairs of shoes a year.
Mhm.
A year.
Wow. This is during World War II, right?
Yeah.
World War II, there's all right.
And we had rationing. And I remember I was in junior high school. I worked at the rationing thing where they're doling out the shit. You'd have like a book of stuff. And you'd get like, we didn't get butter. We got crappy margarine that you had to dump the coloring into it. It was
Just dump
it was awful.
Wow.
And I have recipes from my mother of cakes and stuff and different dishes that they adjusted there because you didn't, and forget meat, I never had a piece of steak till I was a teenager.
Wow.
But everybody had chickens, they had victory gardens, we had a cherry tree, an apple tree. My dad planted potatoes and tomatoes and corn and everyone had victory gardens because, you know, food, you had more money than you did in the Depression, but there was nothing to spend it on.
That's fun.
To speak of.
Wow.
So how old was your dad when he went over to Pearl Harbor?
He was probably in his 50s, maybe his late 40s, 50s. You see, I was 14 when the war started. And my brother, when I was 11, my brother was drafted into the Navy, and he became a Navy pilot. He was down in Corpus Christi. And he
From
is,
Texas, yeah.
How old was he?
he was 18 when he was drafted.
Wow.
And what they did, in those days, they were so desperate that, you know, he just came out of high school. But they took like the best ones and they got to go into the V12 program, which they were trained to be pilots. And he never went overseas because in training, he got a infection in his ear and something happened with his eardrum, so he couldn't go into the big bombers. So he taught flying at Traverse City, Texas. And that's where he met his wife.
Oh, neat.
So my brother was adorable. I have some pictures of him. He was a good-looking guy. He was kind of like, I think he kind of looked like John Hamm. Maybe not quite as good looking as John Hamm, but you know, he was that
Yeah.
type of look.
Mhm.
But
Did you work, when did you start working? Did you?
when did I start working? I
Yeah.
taught preschool when I got out of high school. I worked in a drugstore, and then I taught preschool. After I had the 2 years of college, I got to teach. I was an assistant teacher and a preschool teacher.
Oh, neat.
And during that time, when we moved to California, my life changed dramatically because I went from a school of 300 to a school of 3,000. And that was a real culture shock. And I was a junior in high school. So I really didn't know anybody, but I joined this sorority. Oh my God. They had
High
flipped.
school?
In high school, they had a sorority. And you know, I never lived of course, at the time I lived in Missouri, it was a segregated state.
Really?
And I had never been around anyone who was black or Asian or anything. So here I am. But
California, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's like, what? But it didn't bother me. I had my own little friends I ran with, and it just seemed like the people in those days, they were more a minority than they are now. And it seems like they all had their own little groups, you know, so, I always thought, well, what's the big deal, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I felt about, what's the big deal? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I went to Poly High School in Long Beach, and in those days, the high school system in Long Beach was one of the best in the country.
So why did you move to California? Why did you?
Well,
move?
my dad came back from Hawaii, and he had worked in the, he had emphysema, and I think he had mesothelioma, because in the shipyards, they have a lot of asbestos.
Mhm.
And he came back from California, he was never the same. But I was flower girl at my sister's wedding. I don't know where that picture is, it's somewhere. I have a box of my stuff up there. And that's me when 16.
Oh, yeah.
That's my,
How many years was your dad in Hawaii?
I think he was only there about 2 years. You know, when you're a teenager, you
2
don't,
years, he got to see me.
I don't know. The war was almost over when he came back. And rather than buy a house right away, we qualified to live in Navy housing. So we lived in Navy housing until we bought a house in North Long Beach. But,
So you got Navy housing in California.
yes.
So then the whole family moved out there to be with you.
Well, just my mom and dad and I, because both my sisters were married, my brother was in the Navy. So I was the only one left.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of got to be the only child for a while.
Cool.
Well, actually, my middle sister, she didn't get married, she was 30. I mean, that was an old age for a lady to be married. But
Yeah.
she and I were just pals. I mean, she took me to the Muni Opera in St. Louis. We went to concerts, because in the Lutheran church, when you're raised in the Lutheran church, it's very musical. And because it's from Germany, and a lot of the great musicians are from Germany. And we used to go to concerts, and at Christmas, I just loved all the Christmas concerts we went to. And in the summertime, they had a Muni Opera. And one time at the Muni Opera, we were kind of running late, and we bumped into Buddy Epson. And do you know who he is?
Yeah.
Lance knows who he is. He was a song and dance man originally. And we bumped into him, and he dropped his makeup bag. But got to see some really famous people at that Muni Opera because this was the 30s. And what we got to do is, on the either side was an outdoor theater, and there were the big grassy area. For 50 cents, you could bring a blanket and you could sit closer to the stage.
That's
So,
cool.
Yeah, and they actually had free seats up in the back. The
Really?
very top of the thing, yeah,
That's neat.
yeah, so, I mean, I
So it
gotta.
wasn't your parents that got you into like music and opera?
Well, my grandfather, when I was a little girl, they took me to the singing blend parties. My grandfather from Germany belonged to a German singing blend, and he liked Caruso and the classical music, and he was very musical. He sang in the singing blend, and my brother sang in a quartet. You know how they'll have those barbershop quartets?
Mm-hmm.
When he lived in St. Louis, he sang in a barbershop quartet.
What part did he sing?
Huh?
What part did he sing?
He was a baritone. He had
Okay.
a really good voice. If he'd had some training, he could have been a very good singer. He sang in the Parrots of Penzance when he was in.
Oh, I love
High
That's
school.
That's a great.
I have all of those tapes. If you want them, you
Really?
can have them. I also
I
have
love it.
all the librettos for all the operettas.
Really?
But they could be, and they're done by the D'Oyly Carte Opera Company, which I got to see in Long Beach one time. They made their last tour to the United States, and I saw, I think HMS Pinafore, and I don't remember the other one, but, I used to play, there were those big, what do you call those, big ones that you, like this, that you stick in the
Fine.
TV.
Oh, no, DVD.
VHS.
VHS, yeah.
Like,
I have the whole series.
one of us will get it, right?
I was gonna say Laserdisc.
Of all the Gilbert and Sullivan operas. And no, we went to a lot of opera. My first opera I ever saw, I went with my sister's nephew, I guess he was, that came in from, he was in the Navy. We went down to the Long Beach Auditorium and saw Carmen. That was the very first opera I
Oh,
ever
that
saw.
was fun.
I had a chance to see, some guy asked me to go see Don Giovanni. And my head was just not in the right place. In retrospect, I think. I mean, he was a nice guy. He wasn't, you know, I guess he wasn't wild enough for me. I don't know.
Wasn't wild enough for you?
I mean, he's a really nice guy. He probably became, you know, he probably became very successful. But, then I didn't go, and I didn't realize, you know, what I was missing. I did not go see that. But,
Wow.
high school wasn't nearly as much fun as college. I loved college. Oh man, I would have stayed in college forever,
So
but
were you the first in your family to go to college?
no, my brother did. But he had his GI Bill. He graduated from USC. But
Oh, really?
yeah, Ted had
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Well, you know, when Chris worked there, he was hoping that if he could have stayed there, that his boys would have been able to go there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he got to go. I mean, it was really funny because my brother, who was 9 years older than I, we went to Long Beach City at the same time.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, that's right, because he came back and.
yeah, he
was
came
ready.
back and they
That was
lived in
good.
Long Beach. When we moved out here, it like a whole family sort of moved down here. My sisters, well, my brother, well, my brother lived up in San Luis Obispo after he graduated because he was a right-of-way agent for the state of California.
He was a what?
A right-of-way agent. He
Right-of-way
brought
agent.
property for this freeways.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember him saying to me, oh, someday there'll be houses from San Diego to San Francisco. I said, oh, no, that can't be. When we moved in Los Alamitos, after I was married, I used to drive the kids to Bolsa Chica Beach and Huntington Beach. There was nothing there. There was no houses, nothing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Long Beach, where we lived in Long Beach, it was a beet field when we moved there.
A beat field.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
a beet field.
Wow.
So,
Oh,
where did you
I had a
meet-
great life. I really did.
Where did you meet your husband?
Huh?
Where did you meet your husband?
College. Yeah, met him in college. But,
You met him in California then?
yeah,
Huh, I was always thinking for some reason that you met him in Missouri.
no, I met him in California. He was going out here on the GI Bill,
Mm-hmm.
and his mother was a single mother. She finally did get married though. His dad left him when he was 8, and so his mom had been a single mom. And it was really funny because he'd always say, oh, we were so poor, blah, blah, blah. So I went back to Illinois with him. He showed me the houses he lived in and stuff, and I said, that doesn't look like anybody living in a poorhouse to me. That looks like a pretty nice house.
Yeah. No, I was poor. I think it's from poor. Yeah.
But you know, you feel, when you're young, it's like you tend to compare yourself to people that have more.
Yeah, I think
And-
that's human nature, kind of.
But you know, my parents were kind of old fashioned about clothes. So I think that's why I became kind of a clothes horse. Because I had to babysit to earn money. Everybody loved cashmere sweaters. So I would babysit and save up my money for cashmere sweaters, but I would never tell my mom how much I paid for them. It was a sin of omission.
That's funny. That's
Yeah.
good.
Well, cashmere's not cheap.
Yeah, and my sister made most of my clothes through, you know, grade school and that. And then they were okay, but, you know, when I think about them, I think they were kind of immature looking clothes for my age. I don't know, because I was real square.
Were you?
Real.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? Oh,
Pretty right there.
well, that was when I was 16, but when I was 8, 9, and 10, but oh, I loved to ice skate. After I had that bout with, I had my tonsils out and I had tonsillitis and scarlet fever and rheumatic fever.
Oh my gosh.
Not rheumatic, rheumatism. I don't know what it was. I mean, this crazy old doctor in Ferguson, first of all, he was a drunk. And I think he was having an affair with his nurse. And he took my tonsils out in his office.
In his office.
In his office.
Wow.
My tonsils and my adenoids. And I came home, and right after that, they took my tonsils out in the fall. I didn't get back to school till December. I was sick for that many months. But all I remember about it is that I couldn't stand to be touched. My body hurt so bad.
Oh man.
And I don't know, because the diagnosis, I'm still really not sure. I could have had sepsis. I don't know what I had. Because that doctor was just an old country doctor. He didn't know anything. He was just too busy.
Yeah.
But you know what? What happened is my sister, Sis, she started taking me ice skating, and I was about 9, and I just fell in love with ice skating. And I just lived every winter for when the skating rink opened, and I could go.
Oh, that's so neat. Yeah.
And I belonged to the skating club.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, I just loved it. And I loved basketball, but when I came to California, all those girls at Poly High School were so huge. I did one semester of basketball, and I got tired of getting beat up.
Yeah.
Because I was only 5'4", and I weighed about 120 pounds. You know, so I was not a big person. But I did like to play basketball. I actually didn't take up tennis until I was, never took tennis in high school. They didn't even teach it when I went to Ferguson. I don't know if they did, but what I did after I got done with basketball, I took modern dance. The rest of the time in high school.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, you've always been really cultured, into culture. Just,
I don't know. No, those Gilbert and Sullivan tapes, I have them out in the garage. And I've managed to keep people from throwing away certain things. I also have a really good tape. Have you ever heard A Little Night Music by Sondheim, the musical? It's the one that has Send in the Clowns.
okay.
It's a very intimate musical. It's one of the best things I think he ever wrote. The music, there's a waltz theme in the beginning of it, and it's done on a play by Ibsen, and the musical is based on a play by Ibsen, and it's really cute, but it is, like I say, it's kind of an intimate musical. I saw it at the Long Beach Terrace Theater. No, Terrace. I saw it at Long Beach Community Theater. And it's one of my favorites of all times. But we've been trying to get a hold of Maverick. He's never seen Maverick.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, Mel Gibson.
But, you know, we watched, we did watch that other one that you liked. What was that?
Oh Brother, Where Art
Oh,
Thou?
Brother.
Oh, yeah.
God.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's great.
I have the CD
I've
of
watched that
that.
thing a million times.
Somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Something I wanted to ask you, Gavin. Would you like to have one of Chris's CDs? Do you have any of his CDs?
You know, I don't have any of his CDs, but I listen to some of the music that he recorded pretty often actually. 'Cause it's all online.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, all the praise
Yeah.
albums are online.
Yeah.
Now it's funny because I'll listen to some of that music, and I'll remember hanging out working in his studio, hearing him mix those things.
Yeah.
Just playing that tape back and back and back and back, the same 3 seconds of music, just
Yeah.
like, and then I'll hear it and be like, oh yeah, I remember when he was mixing that,
Yeah.
you know? 'Cause Ryan and I would work in the studio for hours and we just solder cables and, you know, fix little things. It was fun. Oh, Robbie's still calling.
Who
So,
has a ringer phone anymore? You do though, don't you?
I changed mine.
Oh, you changed it?
Robbie. Hey man. Not much, I'm hanging out with grandma. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we probably wouldn't be out there before then. Anyways, where do you guys live at? Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
So, she told me that you do not eat
Okay.
parts of the romaine.
We were
lettuce.
thinking about going
Why
to
not?
Just the tender parts.
Newport, there's a
Just the
restaurant we wanna eat
Why?
at, and then.
That's where all the nutrients
we
are,
could drive down towards
digest
you guys
with
and meet you around like,
Yeah.
meet you around like 2 or 3,
the
so.
fiber in lettuce.
He's been working
That
at this
stands
house.
down. Your body can't digest it. It's just
Yeah.
hard. It's hard
Has
work
it been
for it,
like
so
worse and
just
worse
avoid it.
since I've left?
Interesting. She was like, how all these parts
Really?
of romaine? And I was like, well, we'll taste
She
it.
loves it, yeah.
I love hearts of romaine.
I got a bag of them in there for you.
You
Tons
make
of them.
great Caesar salad, you know?
I'm gonna get them while I'm thinking of it. Cause, you know, he eats it every day, so I can't even eat that much. I cleaned up a bunch of it today
She
and.
brought over
Middle of the
like,
day?
There's 8, I think there's 8 in there right now.
she brought over probably 6 the other night when we were having a little family
Okay.
get together.
We
And I was
probably
like,
leave-
well, where did these
We
come
probably
from?
leave around 11,
Like, he doesn't eat parts.
And,
He's
like,
like,
grab
well, bring them over here.
some lunch, and then maybe head down your guys' way.
As long as they
Because-
can eat, that's
Yeah,
I
good.
don't
right.
mind driving down the 1, cause, I told you guys, just 'cause it's a nice drive.
Ask him if he saw the pictures of Kristen. Like, that just.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And just take the babies for a little walk.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Ask him if he saw the pictures of Kristen.
My wife wants to know if you saw the pictures that she sent Kristen.
I sent one picture.
Sent the one picture, said she sent a
From
picture
high
of Kristen
school.
from high school,
Of him.
of you,
With blonde hair.
with blonde hair? Oh, no, you didn't. I'll grab Kristen's phone and look at it, I'm sure it's cool.
He's got long hair.
No, putting babies down or something. Okay, cool. Alright, cool, well, let me give you a call when we're on the road tomorrow, and, alright, cool, man.
Lettuce for days. Thank you.
I don't know which, I took the ones from the front, are they the freshest or?
Probably. I was stacking them.
None of them are more than a day or 2 old.
Nice.
So now if you don't eat them like in 2 or 3 days, you don't give them to anyone. I usually toss all the bottom ones out. She can't keep up with me on salads.
Yeah.
I'm not that crazy about lettuce myself.
She doesn't like it. She forces herself to eat it.
Yeah, it's good for you.
You had
I don't
3
know.
children. How old were you when you had your
20. I was,
You're 20 when you had Jean?
Jean
I
was
was
your
21 when I had Jean.
No way.
Yeah.
So you
And I had, each 2 years apart,
first? How old were you when you got married?
20.
And you had him at 20 also?
No, the first
21.
year,
Okay.
yeah. Then I had
Started running.
Chris, and Chris, oh my God. He was so hyper.
as a baby?
Oh, God. Yeah, they went up to my brother's one at San Luis Obispo one summer, and they got the measles, or the chicken pox. So that whole summer, each one of them came down every 2 weeks with the chicken pox. And Chris,
One after the other.
we lived in this little duplex at the time, and he either had roller skates or a bicycle or something, and he kept running out and going on his bicycle. They sent the health department out and told me,
Remember you telling me about this? They were like,
oh,
can you?
man, I had to keep him in the house until his things burst.
Aw.
Cause he had chicken pox.
And he used to come into my mom's house, and he would be in the cookie jar before, and my dad would look up and say, oh, no, not him. Because he was so hyper. And I don't know, he broke a couple of cookie jars, but they weren't even all the way in the house, and Chris would be in the, pull the chair up, he'd be in the cookie jar. Oh, God, he was so cute. And Gene was kind of placid, and I remember Gene would be playing with something on the floor, and Chris would torment him, he'd walk across whatever he was doing, and Gene would ignore him, and he'd ignore him, and finally Gene would get mad at him. But without that thing running out, then one night he came out, and we had this house, and there was like bedroom on either side, and there was like a hallway, and the living room was right here. And he comes out in the nude and he says, where's my pajamas? He's taking a bath.
That's awesome.
And on my mother's 50th anniversary, when we lived in Rossmore, he kept serving the beer. And I didn't realize that every time, he had a keg of beer, and every time he served a beer, he was taking a sip.
This is Chris?
Yeah, that was Chris.
Okay. So he got his drinking out of the way early, okay.
Huh?
He got his drinking out of the way early.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. But you know, Chris doesn't drink at all, or he
No.
hadn't for years and years. Well, when he worked for Calgary, you know, they took pledge
Yeah.
that not to drink,
I remember.
which makes sense, because, you know, my theory about alcohol, or any kind of drugs, they're a blockage between you and God. That if you have to use something to cope, that you're not depending on God, you're not trusting what you're supposed to trust. And, I mean, there's one thing to have a social drink, but it's another thing if you have to have a drink because you know.
Yeah.
I refuse to take anything.
Yeah.
I'll ice my back, I'll do anything, I just don't wanna. I get fuzzy enough on antihistamine, I don't even need it. I don't even take that anymore.
Really?
No,
Yeah.
I don't take it. Well, Terry told me that antihistamines, some of those things are contributory to Alzheimer's. And I think some of the drug use that has been going on for the last 40 years, it could be contributory to the fact that so many people have it. It's, I have had so many friends, this lady across the street, her mom and her sister had it. My friend Donna, her mom and her sister had it, and she has it now. It's like, Terry asked me, she said, did anybody in the family have Alzheimer's? Not that I know of. Now, my mother got dementia in her late 80s, but she kind of knew where she was all the time.
That was, did we call her Granny Locks?
Granny Locks, yeah, that was Granny Locks.
How old?
She was
How old did she pass away? I
92.
feel like I had met her. I spent time with her a couple
Yeah,
times,
she
right?
was 92.
How, and do you know how old I was or Lauren was when she passed away, or how long ago she passed away?
Wait,
She was
Right
what
before
year?
we moved here, about a year before we moved here,
Okay.
is when she died, because I had decided that I was not gonna leave her until we were looking at houses here, because Jan and Jim moved out here. Jim was traveling, and Jan needed somebody to haul you guys to games and stuff like that. And so, but I wouldn't move out here until my mother passed away.
Oh,
And that was about in 88,
okay.
I think.
Because I have some really early memories of her.
Yeah.
I think.
Everybody loved my mother.
She was really sweet. Huh?
I'll show you her picture. I have one here. I love my house.
You've been here a while.
Yeah, I've been here almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I can get it out of here.
Got a lot of memories in this house. Remember when there's carpet down?
Well, I'll have to bring the whole thing in, I guess.
That brown teddy bear right there has all the fur on the front and its nose cut off.
I remember her first hymn, the hymn she liked the best, was Just As I Am. And I remember her, she knew how to sing, she could sing harmony.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in church and sang harmony.
You're never gonna let your hair go white, are you, Grandma?
What?
You're never gonna let your hair go white?
No.
Never.
Lauren says, no, Grandma, you're never gonna have white hair. I mean, I really don't look good with white hair. I had a white streak in my hair, and then when it gets so thin, it doesn't look thin, but it's thin. But I put a lot of product in it, so. But since I'm not taking so much medication, it's getting thicker.
So you guys stayed in Cyprus until Granny Locks passed away?
Yes,
In that, was that a duplex or a condo, or what was that?
that was a condo.
Okay.
And we were it was a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath condo, 2.25, 2.5 bath, yeah, 2.5 bath.
Big.
Yeah.
It was pretty big, but the rooms weren't that big.
Do you wanna know what my very first memory is?
No,
It's.
She doesn't wanna
You
know.
don't. It was you and I walking down the sidewalk
uh-huh,
to the pool
yeah,
in Cyprus, the little community pool.
oh, yeah,
And I had little floaties on, and we were going
Yeah.
to go swimming in the pool down there.
oh, yeah.
That's my very
Do you
first
remember
memory.
riding your go, or whatever it was?
I have vague memories of the go-go, but really, I think that's just from watching videos of me riding it. But my very first memory that I distinctly remember
Yeah,
was you and I.
well, you know, we used to take Russell down there.
Yeah.
And Russell was like 2 or 3 years old, and Jean had taught him how to swim and dive. And I'd walk into that pool area, and he'd dive in the deep end, and everybody swim to the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Russell's a good athlete. He really was. But he pops up on my Facebook every now and then.
Yeah, I heard he's on Facebook.
Yeah.
So.
But,
But you babysat me quite a bit when.
oh yeah, we used to take, oh my God, we used to take him to lunch. Jane, my husband and I, take him to lunch at this one place, and you would have the barley soup. You like barley
I
soup.
still like barley soup.
And this one waitress, she'd say, I'm gonna marry that guy when he grows up. He's gonna be a looker. And he was like 2 years old.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh,
That's funny.
Well, she turned out to be true. Look at
yeah.
No.
you. You do handsome.
So you guys lived in Redondo for a while, didn't you?
We lived in Rossmore, in Seal
Rossmore.
Beach.
Okay, Seal Beach, that's right.
Yeah, that's when we moved there in 1960. And I used to drive, I was Madam Hang Five, because I was driving everybody to the beach all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And
Cool.
I either had a wagon,
Mm.
I think most of the time I had a station wagon, and they had those big long old surfboards.
Yeah.
And I used to haul Chris and Jean down there to the beach, and I would sit on the beach with this big hat on, when they were littler, before they were surfing, because as you go down the beach, the tide kind of takes you away from where you start.
Mhm.
So I would wear a big white hat, so they'd always be able to see where I was,
Oh, that's cool.
and I could kind of see them. But I took them down to Henry Beach. Sometimes that surf was big down there. Honey,
It's still big.
yeah,
It's still big surf.
Bolsa Chica.
Yeah.
And they went to the jetty, something with the jetty, called the jetty.
Mhm.
But Long Beach got kind of, the beach got kind of dirty for a while. I don't know if they were letting them dump stuff on the boats.
There's
You
a
know.
big port right there, so maybe.
It's a port, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But,
You're 21 with Jean, 23 with Chris, and then you had Jan at 25?
yeah, 25 or 26, yeah. So by the time I was 40, I mean, they were all grown up. But I used to bowl in this Monday night bowling league, and I'd leave Jan home with Chris and Jean, and they would torment her. So every Monday night when and it was a church bowling league, and every Monday night when I was at the bowling league, I'd get the phone call. Mom, they're mistreating me, blah, blah, blah. I think they regret it now, but they
Yeah.
did, they tormented her.
Yeah.
And every Monday I left, I thought, it'll be different this Monday, and it never was.
Oh.
Where did you have your babies? Did you?
I have, let me see now, I had St. Mary's, I had Jan, I had Long Beach Community Hospital, I had Jean and Chris, and I had Dr. Strang, who's he and his wife were obstetricians, and they were Seventh-day Adventist. They're not Seventh-day Adventist, what is this, Loma Linda, what is that? Where they're vegetarians? Loma Linda.
Yeah, it's.
I
don't
can't
remember
think what that's called. Seventh-day Adventist, is that it?
I don't know.
Seventh-day Adventists aren't
But-
necessarily vegetarian.
Anyway, when I got pregnant, he gave me a list of what I should eat. He said, this is what you eat, you don't drink, you just eat this, what's on this list, and I did. And, I think I weighed, when I had all three of my children, I weighed just about what I weigh right now.
But, so, what year was Jean born?
1951.
So this was before epidurals were ever invented, because those were invented
Oh,
in the 80s.
that's another
So how did you
story.
deliver? I'm curious because of, you know, my background as a labor and delivery nurse. So I'd
Well,
like to
let me
know.
tell you what happened when I had Jean. I was only 20, and I went to the hospital, and I didn't go till my labor pains were like 10, 15 minutes apart, I don't know. But I got down there, and this girl came in and she measured, or she did whatever they do, and she said, oh, you're gonna be a while. Well, first thing you know, I'm having bearing down pains. The doctor is not there, and they can't get a hold of him. In those days, they wouldn't let nurses deliver babies. Guess what they did? They crossed my legs and put me out with either.
Mm-hmm.
And Jean
Oh
came
my
out
gosh.
not breathing. They had to work on him with oxygen
Oh
to
my
get him
gosh.
breathing. And there's some way I think, and he was my only child that he didn't walk as soon as others, he was never socially adaptable as the rest, and he was always different. And I don't know if that would have had anything to do with it, a lack of oxygen maybe, I don't know. But, he struggled the first 6, 7 years of his life. And, of course, then, when he was 14 or 15, he started smoking marijuana. And one of his teachers, he was very smart in school, called him her little Edison. And, but then when he smoked the marijuana, he didn't get better from that until he got sober. And I never saw Gene drink, never saw him drink. I had no idea what was wrong with him.
Wow.
I don't know.
Huh.
Never saw him take a drink.
So did the doctor end up showing up though, and you delivered?
Oh, he
with the
did,
doctor
yeah, but
working?
he delivered, I was out, so I don't know what
So
happened.
they just. you
And
woke
all
up
I
and
know
they
is
were
when I came out, my husband said I was worried because they were taking oxygen in there. And I said, well, I don't think it was for me. So it was for him. And when I got him home, he was full of mucus. I had to aspirate his nose. It was a mess.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was like, oh. And Chris was such a beautiful baby. He had this blonde hair and blue eyes, and he still got the tan skin. And of course, here my husband is a redhead, I'm a brunette, and they look at Chris, and
Oh, yeah.
where did that one come from?
Who's the milkman, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my husband used to say, well, that was the guy upstairs.
That's right.
My husband had no filter.
No. No. Yeah.
Gavin knows.
I remember.
Yeah.
So where did you deliver Chris then?
Chris was at Long Beach Memorial, and I had the same two doctors, and the third time, I went to a different doctor, I don't know, for whatever reason, and I was supposed to have Jan at either Long Beach Community or something, but there was a big mix-up, and I ended up having her at St. Mary's Hospital in Long Beach. But, oh God, one time I was in St. Mary's, they brought this old Irish lady in, and they had tubes everywhere going in and out of her. And then they pulled the curtain around, and every now and then I saw curtains going every which way, and she was pulling all her tubes out.
Oh my gosh.
So they got her straightened up. She did it again.
Oh, gosh. That's wild.
Oh.
So were you awake for any of your deliveries though, or did they
With
knock you
Jan, I
out?
was probably most awake because I had her pretty fast. I had all of them. I mean, I would go in the hospital about 2 in the morning, and by 6:30 or 7, I'd have my babies. So I think that's kind of fast.
That's very
Yeah.
fast, yeah.
That is-
Then with Jan, I had no stitches, no nothing.
Yeah.
And I had no anesthetic at all. They may have given me an epidural, maybe they had them by that time.
No, they didn't have epidurals until the eighties.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
so.
maybe I had her, I don't know.
Yeah.
She came so fast, I don't remember.
And during that time period, did you breastfeed or did you formula?
I breastfeed,
You breastfed?
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty progressive for back then.
Oh, really?
Most women in the country at that point were formula feeding too. 'Cause that was, they put,
I think I breastfed Gene till he was at least 6 months old, and I don't remember Chris, maybe about the same. But with Jan, I had 3 kids, we had an office in our house, my husband had he had an insurance office in our house. This is when we bought our first house in Long Beach. And, I was 3 kids and I'm supposed to be helping him in this office. I didn't have time to nurse her because I didn't have a dryer. So I had clothes in the washer, clothes on the line, clothes to be full, and then diapers to be folded and diapers soaking. And that,
Jeez.
didn't have a dryer.
I didn't have a dryer. I didn't have a dryer till we moved in Rossmore. That was 1960.
Jeez. Wow.
With cloth diapers.
Yeah, oh, they were.
Well, at 60, my mom would have been 5 years old by then.
Yeah, she
She was
was.
born at 55.
When we moved in Rossmore, she started kindergarten. And I was working at the preschool down in Long Beach. And, I didn't like that because when I lived in the other neighborhood, my sister lived there and my mom or my dad would pick her up from school. So I didn't have to think about it, but when I was working in Long Beach, I had asked a neighbor and she said she would take care of her after school. And I don't know, she got mixed up or the neighbor didn't answer the door, I don't know what, it was raining and she was standing under the eaves. I quit that job. I said, I can't do this anymore. I cannot leave my kids, just in the neighborhood without really knowing where they're supposed to be. So I didn't work again until, I took an assistant teacher's job. And occasionally I worked in a dress shop at
Okay.
Christmas or something like that. But no, I didn't work again until, regularly, till I went in the mobile home business, which is when she started college. And she was going to college and she was living at, with Pam. And, we were living in the mobile home park, which was adult park. So when she
Okay.
was going to UCLA, that's when I went back to work to help her pay for her books and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So I think I started working sooner than that. I worked in the mobile home business.
My mom said that you guys owned an Orange Julius. at
We
one point.
did, yeah, in the 60s,
Okay.
when we lived in Rossmore. Well, that was a big fiasco.
After a funny story than that one.
You know about the Orange Julius.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I've heard most of what she's
That's
telling
cool.
you.
Really?
Oh yeah.
My husband always
I
had some
love
kind of
listening to this
scheme
stuff.
going. And I don't know if you remember the story about the
He was such a horse trader, too.
yeah,
Just
the
like-
used car lots. You remember about the used car lot?
Yeah.
He had a used car lot over on this street. Oh, I taught swimming at Brett Anderson's too. He had a car lot, but he didn't want to pay the insurance to keep the cars there all night. So by this time, everybody's a teenager and drives. So every night, we drove all the cars home, and in the morning, we drove them all back. Is that insanity?
Oh my God.
Just save
Oh,
money,
that does not
right?
surprise me, that grandpa at all.
Oh
Does
my
not
gosh.
surprise me.
It's funny how men go through cycles.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I remember one time in the very first house we lived in, some neighbor down the street had a sailboat. And, no, somebody gave him a sailboat, but it didn't have sails. And it was in our garage in our house I can't remember the name of that street, that escapes me. So, and he was gonna fix it up someday. And that boat sat in that garage for I don't know how long. So one day, he got some guy down the street to take it. So here we are, we didn't have
Like a trailer?
the trailer.
Uh-huh.
So all the kids brought their wagons, and we're all pulling this boat down the street on wagons.
No way, are you
And it
kidding
was
me?
like a 15, 16-foot sailboat. And we're going down the
Little
street.
kids.
And this guy was just as crazy as he was.
Oh,
So he takes the boat. So
oh,
we're
geez.
all hauling ourselves down the street with that boat on all those wagons. Oh my God, oh, such a
That's
life.
so funny.
But you know what, it's not not necessarily just the good things in your life that make a difference. It's the stupid things that happen and some of the bad things that happen that build character.
Yeah,
It's like if life is too easy, those people are dull.
yeah.
You know, my friends that I deal with, because they've all had alcoholics in their lives, you know, they've had some good adventures.
Yeah.
But I remember one year, oh my God, we went up to the mountains to get a Christmas tree. You know that movie
Yeah.
Yeah.
where he goes up and they're gonna cut a Christmas
What's the
tree?
name of the movie again?
The
So we
National
go up to
Lampoon's,
Idlewild to cut a Christmas tree.
Christmas vacation.
Christmas vacation,
Yes,
right.
so we're going,
Yeah.
and we're going with this other nutty couple. He's just as crazy as my husband. So anyway, we get up there, and I don't know, for some reason, I don't remember if we got a tree or not. I just don't remember, because coming down the hill, we got sideswiped. And we were on the outer, I was scared to death to go in the mountains for years. We were on the outer edge, and we got sideswiped this way, and they just went on.
Right.
But
Oh,
then,
jeez.
that was a nightmare,
Oh my
an
God.
absolute nightmare. Oh, God.
Wow. She told me that my grandfather used to lose cars. He would just
Oh, he
lose-
did, yeah.
He would just lose a
He
car.
get drunk and lose cars. He went up to,
I've heard a lot of these ones
he
already.
went up to this fair one time up in Sacramento. It was a county fair or something. He was up there for business, because he was working for a roll farm business, and there were a lot of business, beginning of the space age. So he goes up there, and he and this guy go in this fair, and they both drink, and they come out, and they had rented a car, and they couldn't remember what car they rented, either one of them. So they had to take a taxi to the motel and come back the next morning, and then whatever car was left, that was theirs.
Oh my God.
That's so funny.
I bet your music friend would probably like some of my stories.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I was gonna ask you about his brother. You know, he died in a seizure. Was he a drinker? Or did he have epilepsy or what?
It's been kind of hush hush, but I think it was a substance thing.
Yeah, yeah,
He had a bit of a drinking problem.
yeah, that's quite common.
So,
You know, I wanted to
it's tough.
educate her to recognize people that need to go to Al-Anon, because it's sometimes the only hope for some people is if one person, we have a saying, let it begin with me. And I'm a perfect example of that, because when I went, Chris became a born-again Christian, so did Jan, and then my husband went to AA, and Jean went to AA. So, but if I hadn't changed my methods, because I was paying for tickets for those guys, and, you know, bailing everybody out, I was bailing everybody out of trouble all the time. And, you know, it's like, you have to let the people have the consequences of their actions in order to, but oftentimes the wife of the person that has the problem is the most distraught. Because, you know, my husband could drink and get up the next morning and whistle and get ready to go to work, and he seemed just fine. I would be a mess. I would be just distraught, totally distraught.
Because you're covered for him all the time, it's ridiculous.
Well, and then, you know, he wouldn't always drink, and he would be sober for 6 months, and it was very deceptive, because I never could figure out, you know, what it was. That
Wow.
in the beginning, you think, well, am I doing something wrong? And then he'd tell me I was.
Wow.
Well, yeah, if you just keep these kids straight, or if you just keep this house cleaner, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like they always find a reason why, you know, it might be your fault. So, I don't know. But that was a,
I meant to tell you, when I was taking my certification to be a
Uh-huh.
nurse practitioner,
uh,
there was a question about Al-Anon on there,
Uh-huh.
about like, what would you send them to or whatever, and I knew what Al-Anon was because of you, and I was like, how many people even know what this is?
no.
Not a lot of people even know what that is at all, but I got the question correct. because
Yeah.
I knew it from.
Well, you know, it used to be much more secret than it is now. Thank God for Betty Ford.
Yeah.
Because Betty Ford went to the Navy housing, and actually, Navy hospital up here in Carson. And one of my girls that I sponsored also went there for help, the Navy hospital. And she was so open about it. And you know that Jean was sitting in front of President Ford and Betty Ford in a meeting one night in Huntington Beach.
Really?
And I said, well, Gene, did you turn around and shake his hand and say hi or something?
No.
No, he was too shy.
Oh, yeah.
He couldn't do that.
Well, it's also Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, you're supposed to be anonymous, right?
Yeah,
You're supposed
yeah.
to be-
Well, but this was a meeting, so, you know,
Okay.
it wouldn't have been breaking his anonymity, because
Okay.
there he was at the meeting, at the speaker meeting.
Yeah, sure.
But, you know, I've met a lot of famous people in AA,
Mhm.
real famous people. One of the astronauts lit Gene's birthday cake for him, for his AA birthday,
Really?
yes.
Wow.
One of them that had been to the moon.
Really? Wow.
She's like, let me narrow it down some more.
Yeah, exactly. That's really neat.
So I was presenting him with the cake. I think it was maybe his second year, because this particular guy got sober about the same time Gene did. And we lit the candles, and I took the cake up, and they sing happy birthday, and then they give a little talk.
How many people do you think you've sponsored over the years?
Have I?
Yeah,
Well, you know, some of
Yeah,
them
just
moved
guess.
away.
right.
You know, maybe 40?
Really?
I don't know.
Wow.
And some
that's
of them
really
have
cool.
become really, now, of course, my friend Kathy, she's just my friend, but she's very active right now. She has a she shed. And they do their
She shed.
inventories in the she shed.
Uh,
And she's now doing they're going through a book, and they're in her home on intimacy. We have a special book on intimacy. And it gets kind of sticky with, I didn't think, it's not just about sex, but some of it is. And I feel that personally, that particular book should be done in a private setting with just a few people. Because not everybody is so anonymous.
I got you.
And especially when it comes to something like that,
Yeah.
that you have to be really careful.
Mhm.
But, oh my God, one girl I sponsored moved to Florida. I met her when we lived in the mobile home park by the Navy housing, and I sponsored several girls whose husbands were in the Navy. And she became a nurse, then she retired, and then she got really active in service.
Mhm.
And, you know, doing service is part of what keeps a person, because you can get wrapped up in your own life so tight that you forget. I remember going to one of the meetings early on, and the lady said, oh, we're having a picnic in a park across the street. And I said, what park?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. Goodness.
But, you know, it's like anybody that does the 12 steps, you almost have to be born again. It's almost like you have, what they say in AA is ego deflation and depth. You have to be so willing to learn something different than what you've been doing. And it is different, because we all want to rescue people. We all want to be this good person. And I remember Dr. Phil saying to this man, he had a drug-addicted daughter, and he kept giving her money. And Dr. Phil said to her, you know, you keep giving her money because it makes you comfortable. You're not thinking about what's going on with her. You do it because it makes you comfortable. And that's the truth. You do it partly because you're scared to not help that person, and because that's how you grew up.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work with people that are addicted. You have to stop doing for them. And when I almost divorced my husband, I mean, it was so funny. He left on his birthday, and we were separated. And he goes out the door, and I don't know if he didn't have a suitcase. He had a blanket with crap in it. I don't know.
That's a great moment.
And
Yeah.
he said, when I left, I thought you were going to end up in the nut house. And I said, no, I thought you were going to end up on Skid Row.
Wow.
Mhm.
Goodness.
But, you know, your grandfather became very perceptive about a lot of things. He said, you know, people that have a drinking or drug problem, they have a lot of ego but no self-worth. And that is
Interesting.
so true.
That's really interesting. I've never even heard that distinction made before.
Yeah, because if you have to be this person that has to be out there all the time, there are two kinds of people with ego. There are people who don't need anybody, and there are people that have to be the center of attention all the time. And that's what my husband was. He loved telling jokes, and I remember I met a girl one night, actually we were in a bar. She says, I really want to know you, but every time I'm around you, your husband talks so much that I don't really get to know you. And then I'd meet people and they'd look at him and they'd remember his name, and they wouldn't remember mine.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But that was 50 years ago, you know, when I was a different person.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're
I was-
coming up on your you're gonna get your 50-year chip, aren't you?
Yes,
When is that?
August,
This August?
yeah.
Wow.
I'll be having a party.
All right. That's cool.
Yeah,
Congratulations, by the way.
oh,
That's-
I don't know, I feel kind of, because I'm gonna have a 90th birthday then January.
You've earned it. Don't feel bad for 1 second. Come on. You earned it.
This guy here, he and I are soulmates, I swear to
Yeah.
God. Yeah. We've had so much fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
I think it's wonderful when you can have friends that are just friends, you know, that they're of the opposite sex. And when I was in college, I did have some friends like that. But, you know, the one guy I should have married that I really didn't, but he never asked me. But he was in love with my best girlfriend in high school. And he never got over it. And, you know, I always knew that even if he ever asked me to marry him, there would always be that third person. Because he never got over her. Even after he married somebody else, he set her up in a mobile home. She became a drunk. She became a really messed up person. And I saw her at an Al-Anon meeting one time because she didn't know she had the problem. And I didn't recognize her. She recognized me, but I didn't recognize her. But she was a mess. She was just, I don't know. My husband told me a story about it. He says he went up to Quail Valley here one time to buy a camera or something from somebody. And he says he saw this woman and he found out her name, and it was a girl that he had a crush on in high school. And he said she was the best. He says, oh God, I'm glad I didn't marry her.
Wow.
And I remember going to the class reunions and all the big shot football players were just fat good old boys.
Yeah.
They turned out to be. Oh. I didn't have sense enough to try to find somebody like him. Of course, he's too young for me, but one of my best friends, her husband, her son, her brother was in engineers in Long Beach City. And there's a big engineer club. And, you know, I kind of thought those guys were kind of square. You know, they were
Square.
The majority of them are.
They were kind of nerdy. They were kind of nerdy.
Been around engineers my whole life. They're kind of nerdy.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
good to be nerdy now. I mean, look at you. You got your own
Oh,
house.
you're saying I'm a nerd?
No, you really aren't. No, I don't
It's like
know.
you're not that.
I didn't know you were. But I mean, the engineers, they always have their little pocket with their pen and all that stuff.
Sometimes it gets really, really bad. We have to work with them. We have to manage them. We have to hire them to work for you. It's like, okay, dude, you either come out of your closet or this isn't going to work. You got to be a normal person, okay?
Well, he used to build stuff for Disney,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but Disney is not what it seems to be. It's a lot
Disney's ridiculous. It's one of those ridiculous corporations that you understand corporate America, right? Yeah. It's a mess. You spend most of your time doing absolutely nothing, and everyone's covering their own butts. They don't get blamed for anything, so nothing gets done. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They waste a lot of money.
Disney
Gene
wastes
found that out too.
millions.
Yeah.
Gene had that same experience with big corporations, is that a lot of money gets wasted, and I don't know where they get the money from. With Disney, look at how much they charge to get into those cockamamie parks.
Yeah.
Good God.
I only worked
Who
for
can
Disney
afford to go there? I haven't been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't know why people spend the money to go there. I have no idea.
It's little kids.
Yeah.
It's not about adults.
When you get beyond the little kid thing, it's, I mean, I used to take my sons there. I
Uh-huh.
lived in Irma at that time, so I had a California pass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So my older son, he grew up, you know, I'd take him over there almost every evening after school.
Yeah.
We'd just, you know, go do whatever, because I worked right in Tustin,
Mhm.
so it was easy. But when you get beyond that, it's like, why do you go here?
Yeah.
You know, why do you come? But there's a whole, I mean, I worked for Disney for 7 years, right? And there's a whole group of middle-aged and older adults that are like really into Disney. I mean, they have clubs, they have the whole
Oh, yeah.
thing, they have all the pins. They
Yeah.
hate you. You can go to the
You
park.
see those people in there.
Oh yeah, you can go to the park. They're there every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a woman who's way oversized. She has a whole YouTube channel of how to get past our safety features on the rides if you're too big for them, how to get into those and how to ride those rides.
What?
I used to have to watch her videos to understand how her thinking was, so I could design the safety devices so she would be safe and
Oh
people
my
like her would
God.
be safe. Because
They
we can't.
had an accident just recently.
Yeah, because we can't tell her she can't do it because that would give Disney the whole bad rep thing, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy what people do.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
You've been a vegan how many years?
Well, it's a whole
To
process.
see his
but
skin?
I've been raw food for like 5 years now.
But you've been a vegetarian before that.
No, I was never a vegetarian. Vegetarians are like, they're always out of balance. But I went vegan.
Like me, only I'm not a vegetarian.
I went vegan.
I'm a pescatarian or something like that, I don't know.
Well, I started going vegan when I was in my 30s. Well, actually, I started food combining in my 30s, my late 20s, early 30s, because of all the health issues I had. I was already developing. I watched my dad have arthritis. I had a lot of alcoholics in my family, so I watched all these people kill themselves, basically, right?
Yeah.
And then I finally understood everyone is killing themselves by believing in what the culture's telling you. And I started food combining, and all my symptoms started like declining rapidly. Because
Wow.
I was one of these guys that grew up in San Diego surfing every day, twice a day, trained for it, right? For like 15 years of my life. I was in the water, and I still had the worst allergies on the planet.
That makes no sense at all.
Exactly, right? And I had an allergist who gave me allergy shots. He gave me injections of penicillin every month.
Wow.
For at least 10 years of my life. I was on antihistamines twice a day for at least 15 years of my life. They even asked me to test out antihistamines. That's how many I took.
You became a guinea pig.
I refused. That's when I was like, this is crazy. And I went in and saw my allergist. He goes, you got to change something or you're going to be dead by the time you're 30. He goes, I'm not joking. He goes, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but that's what's going to happen to you. And so by the time I was like in my early 20s, it was like, this is ridiculous. This is crazy what I'm doing. So that's when I started waking up. But when you start waking up, that's a scary thing because you got to go against what you've been brought up in. And you got to question everything. And people don't like you questioning things, especially at like family gatherings and stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, school teachers don't want you to question anything. College professors don't want you to question anything. Do what I tell you and I'll give you the degree and you get out of here and, you know. But no, you start questioning stuff, that's when things start happening. So my wife was against me. Everyone was against me. When I started fasting for the first time, I went on my first 5-day fast. Oh my God, my wife was threatening to call paramedics, like I was going to kill myself. Yeah. And you know that you were pretty much on your own then. This was back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And there wasn't people doing what I was doing. But yeah, then you kind of go through like things. And I went to projects. I had some companies, but then I went to projects where I was going to different countries and stuff. I mean, I lived in Shanghai for 3 years, so you have to be a raw food if you want to live there, because Shanghai will kill you.
Yeah.
every American that went over there for Disney, every one of them got sick. I mean, to the point where they came home, some of them got cancer, and they sent them home to die, okay? That's how bad Shanghai is.
Wow.
You cannot eat the food in the city. You cannot drink the water. You can't breathe the air. You can't, we always said Shanghai is a great place if you don't like to eat, drink, or breathe.
Let's hope we can never have a concert there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's likely to happen.
No, I don't think he's got a big following over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's craziness. Yeah, but,
Oh, and it's really hard to be disciplined. I mean,
Yeah.
as little disciplined as I am. I
yeah,
mean, my friends are uncomfortable around me at meals sometimes because I'll only eat half of what I order. And, you know, I have restrictions, of course, but,
Mhm.
you know, I still have to be pretty careful because I have, what's that bladder thing?
oh, with the seats?
The cystitis.
Oh,
And let me tell you how I got cystitis. Doctors, I just love them. You know, I had this surgery and I had a catheter in there. And so he couldn't get the catheter out. He says, oh, I know how to do that. And he's with this real cute nurse. So he's put ether in my catheter. And then he looks at this nurse and he's kind of flirting with her. The catheter broke. I was bleeding immediately. So I know that I have like scar tissue on my bladder from that. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the doctors that I played tennis with, well, I didn't play tennis with him, but I knew him. He had a patient that had a kidney surgery and he had cancer in one of his kidneys. He took out the wrong kidney.
Yeah,
Whoa.
that stuff used to happen.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's still
know.
does.
I mean, it was all over the tennis court. He was a tennis player down at
That's
Old Ranch
insane.
down there in Los Alamitos. And, oh my gosh.
if you want to die fast, go see a doctor.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny being, because I'm in the healthcare profession, and
Yeah.
one of my favorite doctors was like, I don't ever go see the doctor.
No
He's like,
way.
nope, I don't
Talk-
want to do that.
I work for a lot of people and done contracts with a lot of large pharmaceuticals. And the first question I asked them was, you take the drugs? They're like, no way, that stuff will kill you. And then the next statement, my next question is, how do you justify killing a lot of people? And they're like, those people are gonna die, they're killing themselves, I'm prolonging their misery.
I met a gal at the gym
Yeah.
one day.
Wow.
And she says, my friend was told that she only had 6 months to live. So she threw away all of her pills. And
She's still alive
she's
now.
still living.
Like, I'm done.
You know, the idea that,
Right now, I only
Yeah.
take a very minimal amount of blood pressure pills, and usually my blood pressure runs, 100 and, what is it, about 100.
you were up to like 140, 150.
But that one, let me go get it. One second.
Yeah.
I was down really low there for a while.
You went erratic there for a while. Right after they put that pacemaker in you, you kind of.
Well,
were
the
going up and
pacemaker I had
down.
to get adjusted to.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom.
Oh, somebody's waking
Tell her we're
up.
having a meaningful conversation.
Okay. Is she fussing at all, or is she just kind of stirring? Oh, no, is she... Okay, will you go pick her up and hold her a little bit? Yeah, we'll come home. Okay. See ya. Bye. The baby's waking up.
Figures.
We gotta head out. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm just,
She just let me here.
I'll just
I was living in Ontario at the time, and I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna call, and called her. She tells me, never had a male roommate before.
Oh, I gave him
Oh,
a
I
bad
know.
time.
Oh yeah.
I know.
Oh,
And
I
then
remember.
she wanted check stubs.
He said, I worked at Disneyland. Oh, 117 over 49.
That's
Right
pretty
on.
good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's better than mine.
49's lower. But
Well, then I was 149 over 61, but that was last night. I'm always higher at night than I am in the daytime. Let's see what I am right now. I'm probably high now because I'm excited.